Good afternoon, YouTube. My name is Brandon, and today we've got a full packed episode, so stick around. Okay guys, so if you've watched episode 3, you'll know that when we left off, we were starting with basically a blank canvas, and in this episode we're going to start putting things back together. And I also have a special guest, my son, and if you've watched the industrial cart video, you'll know that he was the recipient of that Christmas present that my daughter and I built. So let me introduce you.
Alright, so today we're going to be taking these cool pieces of metal here, and we are going to be welding them to the sides. I've never welded before, so that's going to be an adventure.
Okay. What do you want to do when you get older? You want to be a welder, right? Okay, take 2. So what do you want to be when you get older, Matt? A welder?
This happens every time. I get the giggles because I get nervous and I laugh.
All right, Matt found that funny that he wanted to be a welder. So what do you want to do? Tell the people what you're doing right now, Matt.
Right now I'm in college. I'm a psychology major. I'll be a senior next year, and I'm looking to go into social work, actually.
Good. Hey. All right, let's get to it, guys. And not that there's anything wrong with being a welder. Matt just wants to be in social work. Before we unleash him on the trailer, we're going to let him do a few practice welds. Alright guys, first time welding right there. Not too bad. I'm super impressed. Finish this trailer for me. Alright, you ready to do some real stuff? Let's do it. Sounded really good. Let me see.
So that's good.
Yep, a little bit closer to that crack. You veered off just a little bit, but you're okay.
Alright, so should I go back in and fix that?
Nope, you're fine. Right. Now just do this side. Perfect. And the key is to try to be comfortable.
That's why I get on my
Rest your arm, whatever you got to do.
I don't know why I always do this. I always do that.
Perfect. Looks good. How do you like welding, Matt?
I like it.
Awesome. Nice. Wow. They're getting better and better every time. Yep, you can go ahead and nail the bottom too.
I feel like every 5 welds.
That's alright, it's only $40 a roll, Matt. Don't worry about it.
I'm sorry.
That's alright. I'm just kidding. No, it's not that much. I'm just messing with you.
Don't do that to me.
I'm just messing with you. So what do you think? You gonna give up your major and be a welder?
I don't think so.
That looks good. Very nice.
We're getting flatter.
Yep, no, they're looking really good. Super happy. And then we can start putting the perimeter on. Don't worry, Matt. It's only $40 a roll.
I swear to God.
Just pull the trigger and let it run.
They should put the trigger somewhere where you're not gonna like just hit it with your hand.
Or just don't hit it. Or you could just not hit it.
But like, you've been doing this for 30 years. I've been doing this for like 10 minutes. And I've got like these like bear hands. I feel like a bear.
In all fairness, those gloves are built for my hand. So.
Yeah.
Nail it. Yep, looking good, Matt.
You need to check it?
Nope, I believe it. I trust you. All right, good job, Matt. We've got the top rails all tacked on, and now what we're going to do is we're going to start working on the top perimeter. Let's get doing that now. Alright guys, we just got a bunch of parts in. Let me bring you in and show you what we got. So there we go. We got all new hangers and all new bolts. Ta-da! And we got all brand new springs. Alright, so what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be mocking up everything, and everything's going to get painted last. So what I did is I wire brushed down the spring seats, which are right here. This is what the spring is going to go against, and I'm going to show you some real close-up stuff. I wire brushed those down, and then I put some, it's like rust reformer, or it's a rust converter. I put a rust converter on these pads here, and then I just sprayed them with some gloss black spray paint, because what I don't want to happen is once the leaf spring gets sandwiched on here, I don't want any corrosion to happen within that space. So it was important that I got this part finished right now. So what we're going to do is I'm going to get the springs on the axle. We've got all new hangers and all new tie plates. We're going to put new springs on it. Then we're going to flip the trailer over and we're going to mock up the axle, and I'm going to show you guys on how to square up the axle to the frame of the trailer and to the tongue. Alright guys, so now I'm going to go over with you on how to mock up your axle, and this is super important, this part. So I'm going to go about it very much in detail, because if you get this wrong, this part wrong here, next to having good welds, this is, as far as I'm concerned, the most important part of this project. If your frame is square, or even if it's out a little bit, this part of the project, squaring up your axle, can fix that. It can take care of all of that. And that's what's important here, is that your axle tracks perfectly in line with your hitch. Because if it doesn't, it leads to all kinds of problems, especially with tandem trailers. Single axle trailers, not so much, but it's going to lead to premature tire wear, and we don't want that. So the more time you spend on this step, the better overall, in my opinion, your trailer is going to be. So let me bring you in and show you pretty much step by step how I go about doing this. So before I pulled off the axle, I marked the axle center line, and that's where I am right now. I'm back on that axle center line. The rule of thumb with this that's worked well for me is that 60% of the trailer is ahead of you, 40% is behind you. On tandem axle trailers, what I found works really well for me, and I've done it many times, is to take a bathroom scale, put the bathroom scale up under the hitch, and measure out 75 to 100 pounds of hitch weight. When your scale reads 75 to 100, you know you're good where you want to be, accounting in an empty trailer. Obviously, if you're going to put a toolbox on the front, all those other things need to be factored in. But on a tandem axle trailer, if you have between 75 and 100 pounds of hitch weight, that works out well. And you can determine that, you can set that amount by sliding your axle back and front on the frame itself until you achieve that between 75 and 100 pounds. That's going to keep your trailer from wobbling behind you or swaying. I've established that my axle doesn't have to be perfect as far as I'm concerned. I just know that more of the trailer is ahead of it than there is behind it. So I've got positive tongue weight. Now, I've mocked up the hangers. Okay, nothing is tight. I've just slid them through, and the U-bolts aren't tight. You want to be able to have a little bit of play so that these springs can move a little bit on this axle tube. Not a lot, but just a little, so that if you bump them and you bang them with some pressure, you can move them. That matters. I've also done the same thing here. Okay, now to get things rough, which is where you have to start, I just take a common measurement and I do it off the front of the spring. So I'd go from here to the front of the trailer, take that measurement, then come over to this side, do the same thing, measure it out to the front of the trailer. Okay, take a clamp, set it on each side. So now your axle is kind of close to where you think you want it, or where you think it should be. Okay, so does that make sense so far? So the next thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to take a measurement from your axle face to your frame. So you're measuring between the edge of here and here. I'm trying to do this with one hand and explain it. So you're measuring from the edge of here to the frame. Okay, that's important that you get both sides at this stage perfect. They need to be reading the same exact thing. So if you've got a measurement of 3.5 here, make sure it reads that 3.5 there. And that may entail you sliding these hangers on the frame one way or the other. Okay, so let's assume now that you now have this axle in the frame perfectly left to right. Okay, so this axle is centered evenly between the frame rails. Now what I do is make sure that this clamp on this side is super tight, that this is essentially locked down. And I would go as far as even spot welding this front bracket right here, just the spot weld, so you know that this is not going to move front to back. Okay, so now you've got a corner of the front part of the spring locked down. It cannot move. Okay, now this is where this next step you can fix any errors that you made in your frame. Now we're not going to shoot to have any errors, obviously, but errors do happen, and if your frame's out of square 1/8 of an inch, I mean, I would say even 1/4 of an inch, you can fix it doing this. Okay, but this is important that you do it this way. Okay, so now what you do is, remember, this is pinned down. Come off your spindle, okay, because that's going to be an accurate measurement with a tape measure. Actually, let's do it. Hook your tape measure on. Make sure you're hooking the tape measure the same way every time, okay? And then come up and measure to your hitch, okay? Pick a spot on the hitch. And that looks like I'm looking at 81 3/8, okay? So I've got 81 3/8 from this side of the hitch to that spindle. Now you fight with your tape measure. Hopefully it fights you the whole way. Now you hook your tape measure the exact same way you did on the other side. It's important because we got to keep duplicating these measurements, and you don't want to have an error in your measurement just because you hooked it wrong. And now we come over here and compare that measurement. And I am looking at 81, I hope you can see that, 81 1/4, okay? So it's between 1/4 and 3/8, so that means that the trailer axle has to come ahead 1/16 of an inch on this side, okay? So then what I would do is I would slide this bracket ahead 1/16 of an inch, reclamp it, and do this measurement all over again, okay? The goal here is to verify and check over and over, okay? So I would again recheck to make sure that the axle hasn't slid from side to side at all, because there is a little bit of play here. You see there is a little gap here and here, and that's okay. You want to try to set your spring so that it's pretty centered in your hanger. So make sure your axle is perfect again, side to side from your frame. Go back and measure from the end of your spindle back to your hitch again, and do it there and check that. If you get those measurements perfect all the way around, this trailer will be perfectly triangulated off the hitch, which means that the trailer tires are going to track perfectly in line with the tow vehicle. And that's what's important for longevity of your tires and for having a good stable trailer. I hope that made sense without a whole lot of rambling. It's kind of complicated, and it's very difficult to film it and video it and explain it as I'm doing it. So hopefully you guys understand what I'm trying to say here. But in short, spend a lot of time on this. If you're going to cut corners anywhere, don't cut them on this step, because you know you're almost at the home run stages right now. You're at the point where you're so close to being able to tow this trailer. Just take the extra time and spend it doing your layout, because it'll pay off in the long run, and you'll be glad that you did. You won't have a trailer that goes down the road that does this number and fishtails and whatnot. If you have any questions about any of that, please just leave them down in the comments. I'll be glad to answer them. Alright guys, so I got this thing absolutely perfect. I mean perfect. Other than using a laser, it's as good as I can get it. So I'm going to go back through now, and I'm going to tack everything together, all my brackets in place, go back one more time, measure everything out, make sure nothing shifted or moved or warped, and once it's all good, I'm going to go back through and just pound the weld to it. So in case you guys are wondering what I use for wire, I'm using Lincoln Electric Inner Shield. It's 30 thousandths flux core wire, and obviously on a project like this it's important, so don't waste your money on the Harbor Freight wire. I've used it and it's not worth it. If you're gonna do something like this, spend the extra money and get the good wire. It's gonna pay off in the long run. As far as I'm concerned, this stuff's the best. And I buy this wire. This is not given to me by anybody. Alright guys, I know I said in one of the previous episodes that I was going to remove this brace here, but I left it in there just because I wanted to keep this trailer frame squared. It's way overkill. We don't need, you know, C-channel on the trailer. It's too much. So I'm going to flip the axle ahead, I'm going to cut this off, and then I'm going to weld on the back hangers. is heavy. A lot of unnecessary weight. Now it's super easy. Clamp your back hangers down right where they fall. The only thing you need to make sure of is that this bar is not vertical. This isn't overly critical, just as long as it's beyond vertical by a little bit. Now that I have this bracket welded on, what I'll do is just measure between the front of this tab to the back of that tab, record that measurement, then go to the other side and make that exact. Measure off the front hanger to the back tab, make it the same measurement as this, and weld that one in place. And that's it for today's episode. I want to thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for tuning in. I know it was a really long episode and I am beat. So please leave your comments down below. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe. Have a good day. See ya.